Yeah, good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I guess
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
I'm coming on your show, but thanks for coming into my house.
So before we kind of start the conversation, I just wondered if you could kind of tell me who you are and what you get up to.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Tom Mcguire, and I am the lead singer of the band Tom Mcguire and the Brassholes. It's a 8-piece funk and soul powerhouse from Glasgow, and we've been sort of on the scene for about a year, doing our own music, and it's going quite well. We've amassed a little bit of a following, and we're working really hard to continue onwards from there. Really, yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't your first time on a podcast either.
No, it's not. No.
I was going to ask a bit about the Brasscast before we kind of got into this podcast.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like working on that? 'Cause it was Angus you had done?
That's right, we had Angus Monroe. It was just a sort of mad idea we had. We thought, what kind of content can we give to our followers and stuff like that, because it definitely seemed like a certain strategy to just have lots of quality content, to keep people involved and engaged. So we just had a mad idea to do that. It was quite good fun, quite nice wee experiment. It's nice to try something. I'll try anything once, and it was lovely to chat with him. I edited the video myself, and I'm an absolute novice at that, so I had a bit of a laugh doing that and experimenting with that. But ultimately, it took quite a long time, a lot of effort, and I think maybe I'm trying to steer away from lots of different kind of content ideas rather than just focusing on music. But that was certainly a time. It was like a whirlwind time. We were just trying to do all sorts of different things, see what was sticking, see what was fun, see what worked, and it was fun. I don't know, perhaps we'd do it again. But it was hard work. It was hard work, harder work than I thought it would be, but good fun.
In terms of like keeping like content fresh for your followers and stuff like you were saying there, what kind of other ideas have you come up with and stuff have you tried out other than the podcast to kind of?
Well, we were doing some. We've had a decent amount of success from our music videos, so that's one thing, and we just realised the engagement with sort of video content was quite good. So we were doing some live sessions and other sort of humorous or entertaining video content. Certainly in the run up to our album launch, we were really hitting it hard in every angle. We were getting quite good edits of videos of us doing stuff like playing on the subway. We played a gig in the subway in preparation and sort of in support of this album launch, which we were really pushing to try and make a success. So we played a gig on the subway, which was that really caught people's eyes. And
did that get filmed as well?
Yeah. We had somebody filming that and then editing that. So somewhere in our feed, in our list of posts or whatever, there's a video of us doing this gig in the subway, and it was that was a roaring success. Good fun thing. But all during that kind of run, that was me and the band really trying hard to draw attention to the band in order that the album launch should be a success and the people would listen to the album. So it was all basically all methods to attract attention, to draw people's focus towards the album, which is the ultimate thing. But we tried a lot of different things, and some things worked, some things didn't work. But it was certainly a campaign. It was almost like a war of a campaign. It was just relentless content production, and I'm quite happy to be in a situation now where the album's out. It's been out for some time, and now I can sit back and not have to worry about what's the next content and try and be a musician again rather than some kind of internet content factory.
I mean, that content push obviously worked well because the album has it's had a bit of success. It's gone down well.
Yeah, for sure. The album launched especially. We had an album launch in the QMU in Glasgow, and we sold it out, and due in no small part to the mad efforts that we went to achieve that. So yeah, certainly I think there's been results from that kind of strategy, that kind of action,
Yeah.
and yeah.
I want to come back to the subway gig that you mentioned
Yeah,
a
yeah,
wee
yeah.
bit ago. I guess that kind of harkens back to your busking days as well,
For
because that was
sure.
how you all met. Was
That's
that kind of part of the idea of it, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some kind of callback to our roots and how we started. There's definitely some sentiment there, but I think it's something we want to cultivate is this idea of us being a spontaneous and fun operation where any old thing can happen, and that's how it was from busking, and that's how it is in the show. The shows that we put on, it's there's a quite a large amount of spontaneity and organic things happening that I don't even know what's going to happen. So the yeah, I suppose that comes from the roots of busking, which is, as you say, that's how we started the band, how we all met in the very first place. So yeah, it's definitely a callback. That was definitely a callback.
Are there other things from busking that kind of like lasting? Does that maybe affect the way you play live or the way you write it all? Or
You know, it's I think so. I mean, when you're busking, people are just crowding around, and all of a sudden you've got sometimes it'd be maybe a 100 or 200 people crowding around you just on the street, and because you're not really connected into a system or anything, it's not a stage, so you're free to go wherever you want and roam around. So that's certainly something that we've kept on going with. You know, we will often venture out into the crowd, and the show will be taken off the stage and into the crowd itself and make it, you know, almost an interactive experience. So the show comes down into the crowd, into the people, and then that's I suppose maybe that's something, an idea that's come from street performing, not just from our busking, but just from street performing in general. And like the roots of a lot of the music in our band is from New Orleans, and but that is all just street parades going through the street, and the show is moving through the people rather than the people watching a stationary show. So that's I suppose that's something that's we've retained in our approach in our live show. Definitely trying to get crowds involvement. You know, there's parts in the set and parts in the songs that I've kind of written specifically that it'll be a part for the crowd to get involved in, and it's worked so far, and it's made our show a little bit more engaging than it would be if we were just turning up, going on the stage, playing our songs, saying thank you, and then leaving. You know, we're trying to make it a truly engaging and welcoming and universal experience for everyone involved. I think it's working that way, to be honest.
Definitely. I mean, you mentioned New Orleans there.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, have you ever been to New Orleans?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like then, visiting there?
It was great. Yeah, I went there this February, just there after we had the album launch in January, and then I decided to give myself a holiday because it had been such an intense run up to that. So I went to New Orleans, kind of like as a pilgrimage, see what kind of inspiration I could get, see what I could learn, see what I could see. And New Orleans is obviously I'm saying it wrong. We all say it wrong, but I think you just sound like a bit of an arsehole if you try and say it the right way if you're not from there. You're supposed to say New Orleans, right? I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say New Orleans because I would feel cringy if I tried to do it the right way.
Well, it's the same with Maryland as well, isn't it?
Maryland, how are you supposed to say
I think it's supposed to be, they're not, Maryland.
Maryland, perhaps, yeah.
Totally different.
But I mean, yeah, it's the same as, I guess it's the same as people coming to Glasgow and saying Glasgow or Edinburgh, right? So anyway, yeah, New Orleans, right? It's the standard of music there, and the amount of really high quality music there is just incredible. You can just go and watch just stellar quality jazz all day long of all sorts. I mean, it's definitely jazz centric, and jazz isn't the only thing, but it's definitely jazz centric. But the sort of whole spectrum of jazz is represented there, and you can just people playing in bars are the highest quality musicians I've seen maybe in my life. You know, like the same way that I've got a residency in a pub every Friday just playing covers. One of the guys from the Meters plays with a trio every Monday in this pub. So that's the Meters. That's one of the forebears of funk, right? This is this is the roots, the very roots of it. And one of the guys just does a residency on a Monday night. That's New Orleans, you know. That's New Orleans for me. It's just the standard and quality of just omnipresent, ubiquitous, high quality music. It's sick.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned they're obviously like playing in pubs and stuff and doing wines and things like that as well. Does that help you like kind of refine how you are live, and do you help? Is that like practicing for that? You know, going out with the Brassholes, or is it quite a separate thing?
It's a bit separate. Separate. I've sort of been trying to work this out myself a little bit because it's a way to make a living, but it's a different performance. I'm just playing by myself. I'm playing covers, but I guess it is practice in a sense. It's practice in a sense, and it's vocal practice. It's a you're doing a shift of singing, and that's a muscular thing that you have to keep up, otherwise you sort of start to lose it a little bit. So it's an opportunity for me to have actual training of singing, and I'm kind of trying to watch what I'm doing there. So it's valuable in that sense. But also, like, I do requests. I'll just sing requests all night just to keep it interesting for myself, because every song I know I've played 100 times, so I'll do requests all night, and that'll keep it interesting for me, and it'll highlight some weaknesses that I've got in my playing, or it'll just I'll realise that there's some interesting things in a particular song that I hadn't thought about. But it's very much a different compartmentalised thing. It's just that's like a work thing. Certainly allows me a certain amount of kind of training, especially when it comes to vocals.
Yeah. And then kind of taking it from your solo gigs back to like the band gigs. When you played the first gig with the band, how does that kind of compare live to what it is now? Has it changed? How's it changed?
Yeah, you know, very first gig before anybody. The very first gig we were playing all originals, because the band's played, you know, as a sort of work band, a sort of covered band or wedding band for many years together. So we've played together.
Was that what it was? Busking on the streets? Was that all doing?
Yeah, I mean, or some stuff that was made up in the spot. But yeah, we were just busking covers of the street, and then we started getting some pub gigs and wedding gigs, and then finally we thought, why are we not doing our own thing? But yeah, the first gig, doing some of our own stuff was definitely a thrill for me. A thrill for me, having spent so much time and so many hours playing other people's songs, to be playing their own songs out loud to people was a real buzz. And then it hasn't really stopped being exciting for me. You know, I still appreciate the opportunity to play their own songs to people, and now it's certainly getting to the stage where people are singing it back, and that's a total trip. That's not, I don't see that losing its novelty anytime soon. You know, when people are singing it back, that's a thrill for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really cuts through the music, like even recorded, is almost you can hear the chemistry between the band, like all connecting and playing together. Was that something that was there from the off as well, or was that something that kind of came over time as you?
Yeah, no, it was. Some of the band members have sort of changed, and it's sort of it's shifted around a little bit, but we've all the core of the band and all the musicians have met each other and learned with each other through jam sessions, you know, jam session nights in Glasgow. In fact, that's where the very inception of the band was from that. So there's certainly the onus on chemistry there. It's a very important thing, and you know, just making stuff up on the spot, which is what we used to do in the jam sessions. Sometimes we still visit these sessions and do the same thing, and on the street. So there's definitely, the chemistry is an important thing. It's not a cold calculated get in, do the song, get out. There's been a whole process to get to that point, and it's been a collaborative, and yeah, there's a lot of chemistry there for sure.
Yeah, and then like kind of a wee bit early in the conversation, you mentioned the music videos that you've put out. I do want to take it back to the Ric Flair one, because that seems to me that was kind of quite a moment in the band's history.
Yeah.
In terms of what kind of an effect did that have upon where you were at as a band after that came out, and I mean, it kind of went viral a little bit.
Oh
didn't
yeah,
it?
for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it had an incredible impact in that it launched pretty much exploded. Wait, let me try and reword it. It exploded us onto the scene from nobody knowing anything about us at all to everybody having seen it, because it did go a little bit viral. I don't know what the definition of viral is, but it was definitely in hundreds of thousands in the matter of like a day or so. Um,
How did that actually happen? Do you know how it hit?
you know what? It's funny because it was completely organic. It wasn't sponsored. We couldn't sponsor it because we got the word asshole is in our name, so we have trouble sponsoring it. That was just purely organic. I think possibly the algorithm in Facebook's changed a little bit. We did a little bit of research and we were quite savvy with sharing. We had as many people as possible sharing it the first half hour, and then it went and kind of grew legs, and it hit. I think what it did was it hit the worldwide wrestling community, and there's a lot of people in the world who really love Ric Flair the person, and then it just from there it just went that's when it started to get a bit viral, and just grow arms and legs and go everywhere, yeah, just like exponential sharing, exponential liking, and it was we no way we expected anything like that. We just put it out, then next thing you know it's just going absolutely mental, and we didn't really know what to do with it. We were freaking out. It was definitely a buzz, but immediately there was a change in how things were happening. At the moment, at the time, we'd been trying to organise a tour, our first tour, and we were really struggling to get people to let us come and play. So we had big gaps in the tour. We had about 3 shows, and they were all kind of shonky crap shows lined up. And then the day afterwards, it was just booked out. We had the whole thing booked with much better shows. We immediately went from having no profile whatsoever to having a significant profile. People started, perking their ears up. People started giving us some notice, and giving us a little bit of acknowledgement and a little bit of acceptance. We were sort of like in the club a little bit. Yeah, so it was a massive thrill, and to be honest, since then we've just been frantically trying to retain that momentum. It set us off. A lot of bands work for a while and they work up to something, then something happens. For us, it was just like smash. God, how do I manage this situation?
But it must just increase the pressure quite a bit upon you.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean that's it. I mean, for me, I did feel a lot of pressure, and I still do kind of feel a lot of pressure. It's something I've kind of had to kind of negotiate this entire year, because it was about a year ago that it was out. So,
I think it almost to the day. I think I was on today, and it was 11 months.
Yeah.
So it must just
no, it was mid September. It came out, and so yeah, that's about a year that it's been quite a high pressure environment for me, which is why I'm saying I'm quite enjoying this opportunity to chill down a little bit. It's basically be the first time that I've been able to since that. Yeah. I certainly have a real franticness about retaining that momentum and making sure it keeps going in there, because this is the project that I've thrown everything into. I've kind of taken a massive leap of faith on this project, and I'm a little bit older than the rest of the guys, so it's probably it could be my one crack at the whip, and we got off to a really good start. So I felt a real kind of pressure to make sure everything kept going, and I've worked super hard to try and do that, and it sort of shows that, like I said, in the kind of campaign we did to make the album launch a success, and things subsequent to that, So yeah, definitely it was an incredible start that we were sort of scrabbling around trying to work out how to deal with, but I think we've done all right.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned momentum as well, because that's kind of like a metaphor for the video itself, because that whole video is kind of like continually going forward in momentum.
Yeah.
What was making that like? Because I can't imagine it. Was it as fun as it looked, or was it stressful?
I mean, there was I'm quite prone to stress, so it was stressful, but it was definitely fun. But there was a lot of things happening, and we were doing it on a total shoestring budget. The whole idea was I just came up with it, I thought, right, okay, we'll do that. We didn't have any other ideas for a video. We need to have a video, so nobody had anything else on the table. So I was like, right, okay, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then at that point this will happen, and then I just charted it all out, and I showed it to the boys, and they're like, what's this, man? This isn't. I don't know. This isn't going to work. It's like, well, there's nothing else on the table, so that's what we got to do. So yeah, there's a little bit of stress on that level, but then we got a guy who was able to basically manifest everything that I visualized.
Did you always visualize that as the one shot, like at the start?
Yeah, yeah,
big long take.
yeah, for sure. I envisaged that from the start, just like that. And you know, I think the biggest thing was renting the limo. You know, I remember being like, this is the point where I'm either taking this really seriously, or I'm just still just fanning about. Like, I've done lots of music projects before, but not really taking it that seriously and fanning about. But this time I was like, am I going to drop 200 quid to rent a limo for, you know, half an afternoon just for this one shot in a video? And I thought about it. I thought, yeah, I could. I mean, it's not necessary. It's kind of ancillary, but then I thought, yeah, I'm going all in this project. I'm doing it all. So I'm renting that limo, and I rented a call around, spent ages trying to source a pink limo, sorted it out, and it went in, and yeah, so it was a hilarious but stressful experience, because it was as well as just actually trying to pull everything together. There was definitely a turning point of me saying, wait, this is me going all in this. This is the moment that it's either sink or swim. And we sank. No, sorry, we didn't sing. We swam. We swam like fuck. So that's good. Yeah.
And I mean, one that's come up a bit more recently is the Get Out video. Was that the most recent one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one I really like as well. Was that also your idea with the cartoon and stuff? Or
you
was
know,
that more...
Yeah, that was a sort of collaborative effort with the guys at the filmmaking troupe called Odd Socks. And yeah, that was more of a kind of collaborative thing. We sort of brainstormed how to do it, and it took a lot of different forms. You know, it was going to be a lot of different ways until it started to get molded into what it was. So yeah, just lots of ideas end up coming in the very last minute. Like the thing with the fish, that happened on the day, and that was like a spontaneous thing. I mean, we mentioned the fish. There's a fish. The word fish is mentioned in the song, and the guys in the film squad was like, "Oh, maybe we could do something about this fish." I was like, "I'm not really that sold on the fish thing. Like, let's not really worry about the fish." But then on the day, somebody got a fish, and then but before you know it, there's a fish getting flung out, and everybody's getting hit in the face with the fish. So there was a certain amount of seat of the pants things happening, but I pulled together. There was definitely quite an early idea on that I was going to get just absolutely trashed, because that's what happens in the video. I'm standing there and I'm just getting trashed.
You're getting put through the ringer a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So they're just flinging eggs at me, chucking fish at me, flinging bottles of water, buckets of water over me. I'm getting tarred and feathered and getting beaten up, and it's absolutely filthy. It's absolutely grim. But that was quite early on in the sort of brainstorming that was on the table. So that was kind of the centerpiece. But the sort of transformation into this kind of manga character and this kung fu kind of fireball shooting element, that was a little bit later on. So the thing about it, there's quite a lot to that video. There's quite a lot of things happening, but it was definitely something that we want to have, just a constant, the same way Ric Flair was, just a constant sequence of visually arresting, interesting things happening. And me getting battered about with fish and eggs chucked at me was visually arresting, for sure.
And I mean, you spoke there a bit about as well, like collaborating with filmmakers. How does that differ to collaborating with musicians? Is it quite different, or is it a bit similar in some ways?
Well, we've only collaborated with two people. One was a guy called Paul Campbell, who sorted out our first and second videos, and that was a different sort of collaboration than with the Odd Socks lot. Is essentially the first two videos was just me telling him what I was envisaging, and him saying yes, we can do that, and then doing it, or saying no, we can't do that. So that was him just manifesting what I was seeing in my head, So that was a different and quite nice way to collaborate for me, certainly, because I just got what I wanted. But the other way was sort of the collaboration was they had a more creative hand in it, and there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of discussion about how it was going to be, and lots of things tabled, and lots of sort of drafts, and that was nice as well. It was nice to have somebody else taking the reins and somebody else with some creative control there. It wasn't just all on me, which kind of gets a little bit heavy on the shoulders sometimes if it's just all me. So it was good to have these other guys who knew about film and knew about how to make a shot good, and then preparing a film in a way that I don't. And I suppose in terms of collaborating with musicians, it can be the same. It can be the same. It's just to do with the personality of the people who you're working with. Some people prefer to have their parts dictated to them, the song completely written. Some people prefer to bounce off each other and have a collaborative thing until the final product is kind of honed and moulded and created.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that video Get Out kind of takes us nicely onto the album because it's the opening track. Was it always the opening track, or was what point did that kind of get decided that was going to open it?
I was kind of always up for it being an opening track, because it sets up in a thematic way. It sets up the rest of the album, and the album itself, to be honest, I've not really thought about it for a while, because I mean I made the album like quite a long time ago. It's been available for like not that long, but I made it a long time ago and put it together quite a long time ago. So I've not thought about it for a while. But the sequence of the record is it's almost like a concept record, and there's a chronology to the things that are happening to the character, the sort of protagonist from start to finish. I mean, it's very, very loosely conceptual, but there's definitely a chronology.
The songs tell a story of it.
Yeah, and Get Out kind of is a prelude. It acts as like a prelude to it, Get Out tells the story of how I actually came to be in the position of writing the record, making a record, of abandoning the path that I was on before, taking this leap of faith that I spoke about, and just putting all my eggs in this basket, and then taking that leap and feeling triumphant and full of rejoice and relief at doing so. So that's the sort of prelude to the record, which then tells the deeper kind of story of my own journey as a man in a universe in which truth and meaning is hard to discern. I've been saying that quite a lot. I've managed to distill a lot of thought into that one sentence. Now I've said that one sentence quite a lot.
I mean, you speak about thematics a lot there. I mean, that is the thing about the album, is that the instrumentation is quite bright and upbeat and free and loose, but thematically there's some kind of darker things going on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, fuck yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. I want funk and that kind of music, funk and soul. It's quite often kind of conceptually shallow. It's just about dancing or shagging, or it might just be about funk, right? Funk could just be about funk, but then I've made sure that there's some meaning and heft behind the words, and it is about my struggles in the past 5 to 10 years, about my experiences of loss of meaning and a search for purpose and meaning, which I think everyone comes to at some point. So I think, and ultimately, the end point of it is convalescence. Convalescence in my case through I have a purpose of just loving someone in one way, and also just realizing that these questions of purpose are the things that remove the possibility of just enjoying a moment, because you start to question and analyze momentary instances of joy and pleasure until they are not joyful or pleasurable anymore. Because the true answer to what's it all about, what's the point, the true answer to that is, of course, there isn't any point. We're all floating on a rock in space, and if there isn't any point, and the universe is infinite, and you live for 90 years, and then that's it, and we all die. So that is the only answer. But the trick is don't ask that. Don't ask that. Just when you have moments of pleasure or joy, make sure and actually experience them, savor them, experience them, because that's all there really is. All there is the human experience, and you can experience it. That's the meaning of, like, that's the purpose, is to have human experience.
So do you think, as well, in a way, that they all maybe helped you kind of process and kind of round off a lot of the discussions you've been having with yourself about that sort of stuff?
Yes, yeah, indeed it did, yeah, for sure. I mean, it was sort of a long process, and the actual story of the record, in terms of the story that the record tells, for me, started years and years and years ago. So it's been a long process. Certainly, the end of the record and the end of that story kind of did wrap each other up at the sort of same time, and I was able to use the record to finally wind up some last things. And yeah, kind of the last song in the record, just like the first song is kind of like a prologue, the last song is kind of like an epilogue, and it does wrap it all up, and it did wrap it all up for me as well. So yes, there's a lot to it. There's more than just a bunch of funk bangers, and that's what I keep trying to tell people. But it's hard to really tell people that without some kind of long form discussion.
Yeah. I think if you listen to the record and properly tune into the lyrics, though, I do think the first time I listened to it, that wasn't maybe too apparent to me.
Yeah.
It was on repeated listens when you start to hear the lyrics, and you kind of start to think, oh shit, there's something else going on here.
Yeah, no, cool. I'm very glad. I'm very glad you've caught that. And I'll be honest, I was writing it. I think I'm putting a lot of things here. I'm putting a lot of references. I'm putting a lot of thematic threads that run consistently and chronologically, consistent from the start to finish. And I'm thinking, is anybody going to catch this? Is anybody going to really see this? And then people have been telling me that they've been catching it. People have been telling me that they've got what I was talking about, and they've sort of experienced the whole thing as like a journey. So that's great. That's an absolute trip. That's so much more than I really expected. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of that, for sure.
I mean, reference as well, the whole thing's scattered. I mean, kind of the hit single off at Ric Flair, obviously reference to wrestling. While we're on references, one thing I did want to ask, because it really jumped out when I listened to the record, was it something Kurt Vonnegut and then the name of a book and then page 100?
Yeah. It's over there somewhere. It's in here. So it's so that was in the first song. Oh no, the second song, and that's a song basically about being depressed, right? But it's a super upbeat funk banger, but it's about feeling dejected, depressed, and just like hopeless. And that the line there is, drink some water, even those paralysed by the meaninglessness of modern life have to drink water from time to time. Which is true. Sometimes you're like, you do feel paralysed by the meaninglessness of modern life. What is, you just feel lost, and that's what happens. That's how I certainly felt. Sometimes do feel, but you still have to drink water. You still have to fucking drink water in order to continue to subsist, and then perhaps get out of it. But the fact is, that's a really good line, but it's not mine. That's the next line. You thought that was a really good line. Well, it's not even mine, because I'm so hopeless, so worthless, that I can't even think of a good line, so I just had to pick one out of a book. So, and then I've referenced it. It's a reference as if like you were writing an essay. You would reference it like in Harvard APA system. And it's from a Kurt Vonnegut book called Palm Sunday. And it is 1981. And in my edition, it was page 109. So I was quite happy with that. I thought, I wonder if this is going to go around. I took it to the guys in the band and said, I want to do this quote, and then I want to reference it as if it's an essay. Can I do that? And I thought they were just going to say, nah, you can't fucking do that. They were onto it, and then we've done it. And now that's the bit where people sing along. People shout, it's page 109. So that's a wee quirky thing. So I try and throw, even though the subject matter is dark, I try to approach it in a sort of humorous sort of darkly comic way and try and throw in interesting little bits of songwriting like that. Like when people get it, when people catch it, it's a total trip for me. I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, what you're saying there about that line as well, being about kind of, people have got to drink water even if they're, pondering the meaningless of life and really depressed. When you sing things like that and other parts in the album about the heavier kind of, subject matter, does that create like a weird conflict of emotion on stage?
No, not really. I mean, I still feel the heft and the meaning of the lyrics. I still feel the story. I still access that part of my emotional history when I'm hitting out with these things. I haven't lost that, and I hope I don't lose that. I think I've got the ability to talk about something that's dark, but also use humour to get around it. Because, I mean, I guess the point that I ended up coming to with the record was that the human experience is an important thing. Instances of that, and one element of human experience is humour and joy, and I definitely think it's important to confront dark things with humour, and it can just be, nobody wants to hear, "Oh, I'm sad, woe is me, that's terrible." You want to hear something that's going to catch you in a different way, and a different approach to talking about. I think it's really refreshing to talk about super dark stuff in a humorous way, and I definitely have. Now thinking about it, there's lots of points where I've hit out with quite comic things to talk about, real turmoil that I have and do experience. I think it's important to do that.
I mean, that's part of the beauty of your music as well, is because I know sometimes the complaints I hear about, maybe like an acoustic act on stage, is that people can't go there and they don't really feel that they can dance along to it.
Yeah.
Whereas the beauty of your stuff is you tackle all these, heavy topics that maybe sometimes pop music and popular music doesn't, but people can still come to your shows and dance along, and it's still about serious things.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think those two things have to be exclusive, mutually exclusive. And I think that's certainly what we've sort of set out to do from the start, is to do that funk and soul and that kind of wheelhouse of music that people will enjoy and get down to, just in a musical sense, but also with some meaning, some weight to it. So that's a goal we've set to do, and I'm glad if you think we're hitting that goal.
I did want to talk a bit as well about the recording process of the album. So how long were you in the studio for when you went in to make this? And was that a constant period of time, or did you go in and out a bit?
No, it was sort of broken up. So first of all, again, this was maybe another point at which there was a crossroads where, am I taking this really seriously, or am I just fanning about? We crowdfunded the record, and we had a certain budget to spend, and we thought, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get 5 days, and then we're going to track it all, and then it'll be done in those 5 days. We'll track it mostly live, and try and get it together, and we'll just smash it, and it'll be great. But at the end of the 5 days, it wasn't going to be ready, so we'll need another few days. And then we did those few days, and we started to realise, okay, well, we should take our time a little bit more with this. So we just took more and more days. So I think all in all, it was like maybe 14 days, and like quite significantly over budget for us. We had some of that budget before to pay for the actual production of the records and CDs, but we just spunked it all in the recording, and we did a proper job of it. It was just going to be almost like a live recording album, and then it became some more multi-tracking, more arrangement, and then it became adding other things in, like backing vocals and guest spots, and all sorts of other things that really filled it out. And I'm really glad that we did that, because I think if we'd done it, rushed it, and finished it in the first 5 days, then it would have been I would have been disappointed.
It wouldn't be the same record.
I don't think. No, definitely not. Like, I think the fact that I was able to say, okay, well, now we're just doing it properly, then we're gonna get like a choir, and we're gonna do all this other stuff, and it opened a lot more creative doors and made it a much fuller and more solid record, and I'm happy we did. Yeah.
I mean, you've got those points in it as well that kind of give it that live feel. Still at the end of what's the point is what I'm kind of thinking. When you've got, what is that clip at the end of it? Is that taken from a live studio recording, or
the clip of at the end of what's the point?
It's about cutting something off. I think it's a band member speaking, and you're kind of all egging him on.
Oh, I think you're talking about the. Oh no, you're talking about Sick Boy. I think you're talking about the Ballad of MC Sick Boy, and everyone's chanting.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. For example, that exact thing. So yeah, no, there's a story behind that, and it's actually it's good. I've not told this story yet. This is one of the things I think. Oh, I'll do that, and then somebody's going to ask me about it one day, and I'm going to tell the story. So here I am. So the Ballad of MC Sick Boy is a song that's about a bunch of events that I witnessed. Me and some of the guys were hosting a jam session in a bar in town, just a weekly jam session where people come and they can play along with any musicians. It's a sort of community vibe. But we weren't even set up yet. We were just starting, and a guy came in and he was like, "Oh, what's going on here? It's a jam session, mate. Can I rap?" He said, "Yeah, for sure. Like, let's finish setting up." And he was a pretty gnarly looking dude, and he immediately started just sharing his story. He said, "Oh, I've just got out of prison today. I've been in there for 3 years. My name's MC Sick Boy, and I want to rap." It's like, "Yep, well, for sure you can rap." So he did. We started, and he came on and rapped, and it was pretty brutal, but it was also all right. And he stuck about it for the rest of the night, but he got more and more pissed, and ended up getting out of order and getting chucked out. And apparently, asked the bouncer later, and the bouncer said, "Yeah, he's threatened us with a shotgun or something like that." And there's cops right there, so they took him away. So that was his one day of freedom. Almost certainly going back to the jail. That's a fucking parole thing for sure. This is such a tragic and brutal story that I couldn't not tell it in a song. It's kind of about his wish to have triumphant musical performance and have adulation from everyone and respect. And it's the video that we got for that also kind of represents that. It's kind of a fantasy of him actually being a success. His one day of freedom, he comes and raps and everybody fucking loves it. So for that, I had this idea that we would go back to that pub that we played the jam session in, and on the night of the jam session, we went there and we got everybody in the room to chant, "Sick Boy, Sick Boy, Sick Boy." So we got everyone in the pub to the same pub to chant the Sick Boy chant, as a sort of tale, a little bit of kind of a soundscape at the end of that track to sort of finish it off. So I thought that was quite a nice thing.
And in terms of the story of him, is that the wildest story surrounding the album, or
that is a proper story song on the album. I mean for the video of that, which was also available to look at, it's called The Ballad of MC Sick Boy. We got the same bouncer who chucked him out on that night to appear as himself, chucking him out. So I mean the video portrays the whole events as well.
So who did you get to play him?
A guy, an actor that we knew from the conservatoire. Yeah. It was that video was an absolute epic. It didn't really do as well as the others because I think it was too hard to watch from start to finish. It was like it required some concentration, and nobody's got any concentration now. So, but the actual thing is worth watching from start to finish. It tells the narrative, tells the story. It just requires about 4.5 minutes of concentration.
It can be a push nowadays.
Oh, for sure. So I mean, I kind of anticipated it not being as successful, but I wanted to do it.
I mean, I guess that's the same thing a bit with albums as well, though, is that now, I think it was Sam Fender's album that just came out. What was there, 11 songs on it, and 6 had already been out or something?
All right.
Like, or just in general, a lot of albums that come out now, albums aren't maybe what they used to be. But you've stuck at a record that it's a proper album, It's
yeah. I mean, I definitely like the format, and I appreciate it. And whenever I listen to music, I listen to music from the start of an album to finish if I can, and to have a record that's a cohesive whole, I think is important, and and a valuable medium to produce art on.
Yeah. What's the first album you kind of remember having like a connection with growing up?
First album.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Because I noticed when I came in, I shouldn't look away from the mic, but I'm looking behind me because there's shelves and shelves of vinyl.
Yeah, there's a couple of shelves of vinyl there. I mean, so I remember the first albums that I bought, but the first actual album that I sort of connected with and knew from start to finish. You know what it is? It was this because it was a cassette tape that was my brother's, and it was Pearl Jam 10 on one side and Pearl Jam Versus on the other. And so that was the first cassette tape that I had, and I listened to it back to forth, back to front, over and over again. So that's the first one I had a sort of connection to. But I think I didn't even know what it was. It was a blank tape, so I didn't know what it was, and it was only later that I found out it was Pearl Jam. So that's the first one. I mean, I'm talking I was 6 or 7. But I think later on, I mean, I started buying my own records, and there's some that are really important to me that I keep coming back to at various points in my life, and like Neil Young's Harvest is a super powerful record for me because I've revisited it from when I was, 5, 6, when my dad played it in the car, and then like later on in my adolescence I revisit it again and realise, oh, there's something else here, and then like later on in life, into my 20s, I've once again revisited it and started to take in the lyrical meaning of it a little bit more, and so that's something that I've sort of got to know and love 3 separate times at least, and it's an important record for me. Neil Young Harvest, which actually I reference it in my album. Actually, there's a direct kind of quote from one of his songs in one of the songs on the record.
Yeah, and I mean, when you heard your record on vinyl for the first time, that must have been, what was that like? That was
that was a
cool.
trip. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first time we heard it was with what do you call it? Test pressings, test press. So it's just white label. So, but
have you still got the test pressings?
Yeah, I've got a whole load of them. I've got like a whole bunch of them. I don't really know what to do with them because they gave us one for each member of the band, so there's like 9 of them, and it's a double vinyl each, and they didn't all want one, so I don't really know what to do with them all. But yeah, the first time taking them out, it's like smelling it, putting it on, and putting the needles down. It seems like kind of pastiche and cliche to talk about that sort of stuff. Oh, it's all the ritual putting down. But man, it was a powerful thing for sure, and hearing it for the first time. I mean, I guess the first time you're listening to it, you're just making sure that there's not been some sort of mistake. There's not been somebody else's song put onto it, and then there's that relief. But then once you get into it, listen to it from start to finish. Obviously, by the time this process happened, you've listened to the record yourself 100 times or more. But it's another sort of milestone that you'll definitely remember.
Yeah. Well, the people that you obviously with listening to 100 times, it becomes difficult for you maybe a little bit to retain at the same sense of perspective. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think when in the kind of process where it's getting, mixed and mastered, and then it's required that you listen to it, and you have to listen to it with a different sort of analytical perspective, you can kind of lose where it's at. But now I've not listened to it for quite a long time because I'm performing them. I'm performing these songs, and through performing quite a lot, they sort of evolve a little bit. So quite recently, I was listening to it. And a couple of tracks, and I realised how much that is evolved and sort of changed, and kind of even how my voice has sort of developed and grown as well. So it's interesting to go back and kind of catch that snapshot of my life as well, because I mean I also who I am is moving on from that person, and whenever I've made other records that nobody's heard and nobody cares about. But that's fine because they were all just snapshots of myself at different points in time, and kind of I think that's an important thing about records as well. Just to the artist, is it's just a document of their own self for later selves to look back on. A concise roundabout way of containing an entire identity in one thing, because I mean you can look at photographs. Oh, that's a nice photograph. You can look at a note. There's a note. But if that's an album is a concise work that you've thrown all these different things in to express yourself at that time. So, and I think that's a valuable thing for other people, listeners of an album, to kind of realise as well when they're listening to a record. That's if the record's been made properly. If it's a valuable record, I believe that it is a concise containment of that individual at that time in their life, and that's a super valuable document and a privilege to be able to listen to. I think
it's a little bit like an autobiography as well in that sense, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, instantaneous autobiographies at that one point in that person's life. I think it'll be like milestones, and each one will change. Yeah.
Do you have any plans for the second record at all at the moment? Have you had any thoughts about it? Or
I'm trying to get into the zone of writing again. Like I say, I'm I'm trying to wind down from all this other stuff, all this kind of extreme amount of work that I've given myself to do, and I'm trying to distance myself in order to give some space to write, and I'm writing, and like thematically a little bit, yeah, I've started to think about what's up, and in fact, it kind of refers a little bit to what I was just talking about there, at these different instances of your identity as you go through life, because there's so many notebooks. I've so many notebooks just filled with thoughts and lyrics and disconnected kind of fragments of thought. But looking at each one of them, it's almost like having a dialogue with your previous versions of yourself. So it's kind of something I want to explore. If there's going to be a theme or a context, concept that I would like to explore in a wider way, it'll be that, just sort of instantiated conversations and dialogues with my own past selves, that might exist through entries in a notebook, or exist through previous records that I've made. So that'll be something for people to hopefully relate to and think about, because it's something I've thought about quite deeply, and I think it's fascinating.
So did a lot of the first record come from like entries in those notebooks and like phrases taken from there and stuff?
For sure. I mean, they've come from maybe a couple of notebooks over a certain amount of time, but I'm talking about going deeper, further. And there's points where like I actually had a kind of a spine chilling moment when I was going through them. And there's one from some years ago, and it's more or less I've written a note to my future self then, saying, "Yo Tom, fucking things are shit right now. I don't know how to negotiate this life. What the fuck's it all about? I hope you've figured it out. Have you figured out what are the fucking answers?" And I read this and I was like, fuck, talk to me. I am the future Tom now. And that's the sort of dialogue. And these notes and these sort of things are peppered with like actual references and actual dialogues from the past me that I've sat and said, "Hey Tom in the future, what the fuck's going on?" And so I think that's something that's going to be quite exciting to try and explore. If I can pull it off. It seems like a pretty heavy topic, and I think I might have given myself a hard task to do, but I'm gonna try. That's what I'm gonna try and do.
It almost reminds me of something out of like, you know, Slaughterhouse-5, like kind of jumping about like at different periods in time.
Yeah. Are you a Vonnegut fan?
I like that book. I've not
Okay.
not ventured beyond that.
That's a good one now.
But are you quite into him then? Well, obviously
Yeah.
referenced him in one of the tunes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of my favourite authors for sure.
Do you take quite a lot of inspiration from like literary writers as well as songwriters?
Depends how much I'm reading. You know, sometimes I get in a really sort of strong reading zone, but I haven't really been for the past year. I think as a symptom of being too busy and too kind of over occupied with other bits and pieces to do with the band. So I haven't really been reading that much, but certainly when I am in a sort of reading mode, I definitely pick up inspiration and start to think about certain ideas that I run with, and then maybe develop. And yeah, it's a source of some inspiration, but it's not one I've got access to right now because I'm not in that mode. I'm trying to get back in the mode. In fact, I'm trying to really trying hard, making a concerted effort to get out this frantic, keep the ball rolling mode and get into this sort of more sedate, kind of creative, kind of introspective mode that allows me to create something.
Yeah. I think it was maybe just a couple of questions back as well. You mentioned your voice.
Mm-hmm.
How has that, developed over time? Because it is one of the most powerful things on the record. So how's it kind of gotten to this point to get to this? Was it always that powerful, or you had to work at it quite a lot to?
I did work at it first. I mean, it's definitely a result of doing lots of gigs for many years, singing in pubs and singing at weddings. I do think it's got a lot to do with just practicing with the muscles, just like spinners. I mean, I listened to some recordings of me singing with my very first band when I was singing out of necessity, and it's just there's a weakness there, and that's just through not lack of confidence and just lack of actually having strong enough muscles in the technique. So I started properly exploring technique and training in the run up to the first record, and I think I had some benefit from that, but it's that kind of technique and that kind of training doesn't just show results just like that. It showed some results and it was helpful to me. But over the past year, I've been thinking about it a little bit more and exploring some different things. I think also another thing is I got a car. And the car is like the safest place to sing. So I've been experimenting. You can practice at home, you can sing at home, but I've got downstairs neighbours. I've got neighbours across the hall, and there's some subtle barrier there that's like, why should I be exposing these poor people to this caterwauling, right? But if you got a car, you can
sing as loud as you like.
You can do whatever notes you want, so you can do whatever noises you want, and it's fine. So, honestly, through singing in my car, I discovered like a whole extra range, a whole extra register of singing, of notes to hit, just through a different sort of technique, which I've been able to practice in the car and then use in real life setting. Whereas before it was kind of looser and scattergun and kind of more of a punk rock ethic to singing. Then I started to implement some kind of technique, and now, I mean, through doing lots of the gigs with that in mind, and with the fact that I actually can do these notes, I can do this technique, then it's become more solidified, and I think I'll be definitely smashing it out of the park with regards to singing in the next record.
Yeah, I mean, where do you do most of your songwriting then? Is that all done in the house mostly? Do you ever go to places to try and get inspiration and find peace to write? Or
it's something I'm trying to rediscover, trying to figure out. Like I said, this is me just coming back to that mode just now. So I'm trying to kind of remember, and I'm literally in the process of working out what my method was. But at the moment, I've just got so many fragments of pieces of music, so many fragments of lyrics, just all squirreled away that I've had to sort of do another admin task to sort of pull them all together in a coherent way in which I can sort of start to work with them. So I've got voice messages in iTunes all categorized, hundreds of them, and I've got lyrics all categorized in a Word document, 42 different categories, thematic categories. I'm not fucking kidding, 42 categories, and that's like a year's worth of just mismatched, fragmented kind of ideas that I've not had time to coalesce. So now I'm at the sort of jigsaw puzzle stage, but ultimately the writing does happen at home with guitar, but I'm wanting to branch out a little bit and get other guys involved a little bit, because if you're just playing yourself, you don't have any sort of feedback, you can kind of get stuck in a loop and start kind of repeating yourself, and too many options, and you get option paralysis, and then you just get bogged down. So this is a process I'm in the middle of right now, and pulling together. But there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff to sift through and a lot of things to pull together. Yeah. So
do you do quite a bit like cut and paste, and where you think I want to write a song about this, and you then go through, look into the Word documents, try to find things that might work with this song?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I have had some ideas and sort of concepts that I have thought I'll be writing about that at some point. So I'll have them aside. So I'll compile them all. And it's the verses. Once you got a chorus, that's okay. But the verses, that's when I can get wordy and get a little bit of wordplay in and put lots of stuff in. And my process has been in the past to write vastly more verses than I can, just massive amounts of words, which I then edit down into coherent verses, of which I have to shave off 60% of them in order to have a song that's not 15 minutes long. So that's quite good. It's quite brutal, but it's quite good in the way that just the best kind of verses get left in, and it's sort of a bit of a quality control. But the process is quite a long-winded editing process right now, and it's sort of, I can end up getting blocked in it, especially if right now I'm at the stage of not really having concise things to edit, but just having masses of information to sift through. It's like an admin task. So that's certainly something to be said for not leaving it for a year, giving yourself some space to do that throughout the year. So, but yeah, gradually, I can see some stuff coming together, and then you having a focus. Once it's focused, once I know roughly how the shape of it is, and it starts to be a quicker and more satisfying process. And then once that's the broad skeleton, the songs there, then I go to the band, build the groove, and then the horns right over the top of everything, and that's it. That's how it goes.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier as well how you just heard the album recently for the first time in quite a good while.
Mm.
It's a bit of a cheeky question, but if there was one thing you could change about it looking back now, what would that one thing be?
I would change. There's a couple of wee vocal bits that I'm like, fuck, that's shite. But it's obviously it's in there now, but
Maybe just you that notices that, though, where everyone else kind of just...
yeah. There's like a super sad song, like it's just an interlude. It's called Caveman, and that was supposed to be a full song. That's supposed to be a full song. And we'd actually recorded the backing for the full song, but the arrangement didn't come together quite as well as we'd liked, and the album was going to be running a little bit too long anyway, and it was so sad, and it was going to be really long and going to be super sad, and everything that I needed to achieve thematically from that I could do in the short,
the tracks you had,
the sort of short, concise version that ended up being out in the record. But part of me would like to have completed that, because, you know, like you say, just to make sure that the darkness that is there was explicitly showed in a significant way. Because one thing I'm concerned about is people not catching that darkness, that seriousness, and, you know, just seeing us as a stupid idiot clown band, party idiot band. I mean, we do gigs, we're fucking bringing the party, and that's great, but I don't want that sort of that kind of element of the band's identity to get lost in all that clowning about, you know. So having a full song that was really fucking sad and dark, like super dark, man, it was gonna be so heavy, but it didn't make the cut. It didn't. The whole version didn't make the cut. So I would have liked to maybe have that.
Are you quite ruthless with your editing then, in terms of?
Mate, I'm really not ruthless right now. I'm having real trouble editing right now. It's just taking me ages, and I'm just getting bogged down. So to the point, I'm just having to go to other people and say what's good here. What's the best of these 7 options? What's the best one? That's I need to get somebody else to come and actually do it. So at the moment, my editing skills are pretty poor, but we're working it.
And I guess the reverse of that previous question as well is, what's your favourite part on the album? What's your favourite track on it?
Oh man, I think Get Out was my favourite. I mean, Plane Crash is pretty special song too, and I think like when the gospel card comes in and I start fucking giving some big gospel licks, that's a pretty powerful moment. Like I made sure I was like emotionally in the zone for singing that in the studio, and it's still there, so it's like a document of a pretty powerful, like, joyous moment. So it's pretty important as well, I think. Yeah.
Was that kind of like the most powerful moment in the studio that day when you?
I think possibly. I mean, I was kind of trying to be completely in the zone, but I was a little bit also in my own head of trying to sing the notes really well as well at the same time. So, I think possibly the most powerful one was that Caveman moment, because that was just me and the guy in the studio, and we did lots of takes, and we didn't choose the one that was the best take. We chose the one that I was the saddest during. So it was just me and him, and I was going into like a dark place, like purposefully sitting there, just thinking about the darkest place in order to sing this line most genuinely. And like I was pushing tears a little bit. It was just me and this one guy. He was just giving me a minute. He's like, "You ready?" I was like, "Yeah." So of all the takes, it was the one that I successfully felt the saddest was the one that we used. So that was pretty fucking intense, man. Yeah, another one was getting the backing vocals on Plane Crash, and the girls weren't quite getting the power, the energy of it right. So this is a song about like salvation from this horrible feeling of purposelessness and loss and hopelessness, salvation through through loving someone, right? So they weren't quite getting it right, so I pushed the button and said through the booth to them, I said, "Okay, good. Can you do it? Can you sing it like you're in love and everything's okay now and the world's not going to end?" And they all started crying. They all started crying. "You're in love and the world's not going to end anymore," I said, and then that was them. They were away. So that was pretty intense as well. Nice. So here you go.
Perfect. And kind of as we're near the end, to round off for one last question, just looking at the future basically, and what you guys have kind of got coming up, and anything you want to plug that
cool,
people should check out.
Great. So first of all, our last video is still fairly current, the video for Get Out. I really implore everyone to have a look at that. It's also, we've released a single on CD which has some exclusive live tracks from our landmark homecoming show, our first sellout show when we came back to Glasgow.
Was that the Union one?
No, there was the art school. That was right after it all kicked off and it just exploded in a big way. So we came back after our tour to a sellout show that was completely unexpected. So there's a real magic in the room, and so we got some like live recordings from that, a few of which we've put onto this into this CD single. It was more like a sort of EP.
Did you know how special that night was kind of going to be coming back off? Did you kind of anticipate it was going to be a pretty big night coming back off that tour?
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd been upgraded because we booked it for Nice and Sleazy's, which is like 110 cap or whatever.
Good venue as well.
Yeah, for sure. But and like that was what we were plotting out. We thought, okay, well, Nice and Sleazy's, well, we fill that'll be fine. But then things took off and went mental, and it got upgraded. We had to upgrade it to the art school, which is fucking 5 times as big. And we were all just like, what the fuck's happening here? How's this possible? We came back and we were just, it was riding on a cloud. It was like incredible. Everyone was just fucking buzzing. The crowd was buzzing as well, and it was just a super fresh thing. So the energy in those recordings is pretty special. A few of them are available on this single. I think we'll probably do a release with them in the future at some point. But you can hear a couple of the cuts on the CD single, available from our website, tommcguireandthebrassholes.com. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me today, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. You've been very good questions, and I appreciate your sort of attentiveness to the record, and it's a real buzz to know that people are listening to it in such a way and have got what they've got from it. So thanks.
That's brilliant. Right. Cheers, dude.
Cheers. Thanks.